Alright, good morning, it's Keen again. Today we're gonna have an unscripted video where I go over the patch notes for version 9.3.0, which is releasing later tonight. I'm just gonna go one by one, sort of give my general thoughts about it, and sort of give a general expectation of what I expect to happen for this patch by the end of the video. So, getting right into it, the first change is that Splatfest has had its bullet velocity increased by 3% and has a little bit more range. Which is, fair enough. Sploosh is not a weapon that sees success in this game. Its kits are not, very good. So I think giving it a bit more range is, something. Throw it a bone, basically. They also gave the same exact buff to Splattershot Jr., which I think is a little bit better of a weapon, just on the premise of the vanilla Junior's kit is like pretty decent. It feels like a weapon with some niches to it. Fair enough. Basically, they mention it later in this patch, but they're kind of trying to buff a little bit of the lesser seen shorter range guns that don't really compete with a lot of the better main weapons that tend to be meta in this game, so fair enough. And again, continuing that trend, Aerospray, another short range shooter that is not very accurate, they did the same exact thing. Fair enough. I like Silver Aerospray, so why not? Not much to say about these. I think it's just quality of life for these things. NZAP is when we get a little bit more interesting with the buffs because its movement speed while firing is about 5% faster, so the default strafe is better. So I believe this would make the curve on run speed and, by extension, since we're talking about NZAP, Tacticooler will be a little bit better. So it's cool. I like that NZAP sort of distinction amidst the short range shooters is the fact it has really good strafe. I think that lets it stand out a bit more. And on top of that, they reduce the RNG, or the accuracy that is, when you're standing on the ground by about 5%. So, not splash-o-matic or anything, but, the more accuracy, the better. Cooler does give you the lack of jump RNG, so even buffing the accuracy on the ground, that also sort of extends to that, so that's pretty cool. Now, what I think is a bit less cool, I understand the thought process behind this buff with the Splattershot Nova. This is a weapon that does not see usage. It is a 5-shot shooter, which is kind of unheard of, and it's not particularly strong, to say the least. Kind of gets memed on a lot by people, sort of rightfully so. It has really good strafe, it has good ink efficiency, it has good paint, and, decent-ish mid-range. Problem is damage is bad, accuracy is bad, accuracy while jumping is horrific. Thing is, it's so bad while jumping, I don't know if 33% is really enough to justify that. I would have preferred if they had buffed the accuracy while on the ground a little bit, and then maybe, made the jumping just the same accuracy on the ground. I don't know, 33% feels weird, because even when I play this gun for fun, I will tell you with a straight face, I don't jump with this, really, with the expectation of hitting bullets. It is, Aerospray tiers of inaccuracy while jumping. It just does not seem worth it to me, so I get the attempt at the buff. I do think grounded RNG buff would have been a bit better, though. Big Swig Roller has gotten the buff sort of similar to how Inkbrush and Octobrush did recently, where the vertical swing's collision detection with players makes it easier to hit. Basically, if you didn't know, with Big Swig, for whatever reason, the hitbox on Big Swig Vertical is a bit thinner, therefore more difficult to hit than other rollers compared to Splat Roller, Carbon Roller, Flinks Roller, all of that. For whatever reason, I really cannot understand, because Big Swig Vertical isn't anything special. It was much more difficult to hit, so this should make that a bit easier. I would assume that this lines it up to match the other rollers, I'm guessing. That's pretty cool. Big Swig's vertical swings are not great, to say the least, so, quality of life number 27 or whatever it is for Big Swig. This weapon's gotten 1 million buffs, so that's cool. Paintbrush shortened the interval between continuous swings by approximately 1/30th of a second, so 60 frames in a second, 1/30th, basically 2 frames less between each flick. Therefore, this is a buff to your DPS. It is a buff to your kill time, teeny tiny bit. It's sort of similar to that one try buff that they got toward the end of Splatoon 2, where it kind of became better at trading, but I think it was also a 2-frame window, so basically same kind of buff. It'll make Paintbrush a little less clunky. It'll buff its paint output ever so slightly, I guess. I mean, it will run out of ink ever so slightly more, but that's worth the trade-off, and maybe it'll make it a little less clunky in general. Tiny quality of life, but sure, why not? And spotlights are actually a bit interesting, because as a main weapon, I think Mini's pretty good. They said reduce the time required to fully charge by 1/20th of a second. So that's a 5-frame buff, 5 frames less to fully charge, and it says with the words With this change, the time until the first level of charge ends is reduced by 1/30th of a second. So again, 2 frames on that. So it charges faster, but it also kind of runs out of bullets or until the first level of charge ends. Oh, so it charges faster, but therefore, like, the whole thing is kind of sped up. So I mean, that's pretty cool. I don't think this ultimately does like a ton for Mini. I mean, it's just a good quality of life, and we'll sort of jump back to Mini when we get into the special weapons a bit. I have more to say about that weapon. Heavy got a buff sort of similar to the buffs they like giving Hydra, where they increase the firing duration. You got 11% buff here, so you basically get more out of your charge time with it, and they also, on top of that, reduce the time to charge fully by 5 frames. That's pretty cool. 5 frames less of startup for full charges, and also just 11% more duration, so more bullets, more DPS. All that good stuff, so that's pretty cool. Heavy's kind of a middling weapon, its kits aren't very impressive. It's kind of just... it's clearly not a bad weapon, but I always call it the embodiment. I couldn't decide in my head if I want to say epitome or embodiment, and I can't pronounce things apparently. It's a very middle-of-the-road kind of weapon, like it's just alright, and the kits don't really do anything crazy for it, so I think buffing the main a bit is kind of deserved. I've kind of been waiting for this. This isn't exactly the way I thought it would be. I kind of was leaning more in the direction of letting it have 32 damage, but I guess having more uptime is, you know, nice. They gave us 2 things on Heavy, so that's pretty cool. Dapple, they gave it the short range buff that all the short range stuff got exactly, where 3% below velocity, more range. Kinda cool. Dapples has one of the fastest kill times in the game when it's rolled 10 frames, I believe, so, you know, even like a smidge more range is pretty nice for it. Blue Dapple's actually pretty decently strong, honestly, so that's pretty neat. It makes me wonder if Blue Dapple will still kind of be doing stuff in some of Japan's tournaments, because it's been doing stuff for a while, so that's cool. One I really like, Spot Dually buff, slightly expanded collision detection of a player of shots fired from a normal posture. Basically, if you haven't played Splatoon 2, which I don't blame you given it's getting like older these days, it makes me feel old honestly talking about it like this. It was like, oh, it's yesterday when I remember this nerf that they're reverting that. Yeah. So in Splatoon 2, they had a nerf where they made the standing fire of multiple dualies. I think it was this one in the Dualie Squelcher, I remember those at least, where it became harder to hit people with the main weapon. So this is specifically talking about standing fire, not like turret. Standing fire, basically, it's easier to hit your shots now, which is really good, because it's Dualie sort of sits in that shortish range weapon category, very similar to like NZAP, splatter shot kind of thing. So being a 4-shot and having a little bit harder of a time hitting than those kinds of weapons is a little bit tricky. So, you know, just having a better standing fire is good, because sometimes it would just feel... it's not that it's inaccurate, it would just be a lot tighter to hit, and on top of Dualie having the double reticle thing, sometimes their bullets just like wouldn't land with the standing fire, so it felt like you needed to commit to rolls to really get stuff going. So really good quality of life. I am of the opinion that the Crab Dualie is really, really good, and Emperor is a little more worth talking about with this buff and the other buff we'll see in the special things in mind. Not like meta defining now, but just in general, I think Emperor gets a bit more of this patch. Finally, because this is like relevant to the channel's content in the future, Recycled Brella. I've been complaining about this weapon forever because it is very stinky and bad and terrible and stupid. But I kind of like stinky, bad, terrible, and stupid weapons when they have like dumb things going for them. So Recycled finally got 2 buffs that I've been talking about forever, where I say, why does Recycled paint nothing? They adjusted that, slightly expanded the width of spray drop with created by shots, so undercover, or not undercover, Recycled paints more now, which is good. And they reduced the amount of ink consumed when firing a shot by 14%. If you do the math on this compared to current patch, it'll basically give you 2 more shots in your ink tank by default, which is really good, because in 9.2.0 and previous versions, Recycled's ink efficiency is horrible, to say the least. Like, you would need to run 2 subs of Ink Saver main to even get 1 more shot in your tank. So to get 2 more shots by default without any Ink Saver main is really good. And if I did the math right, then if you run 1 sub of main saver after this patch, you'll get another 1. So, you know, basically 3 shots more than the default pre-patch for just 1 sub is like, that's kind of nice. On top of painting better, so you're going to build your splashdowns better, and I guess technically your bubbles, but don't use that one because it's really bad. Yeah, pretty cool. I still think it'll be a really bad weapon, but it'll definitely feel a bit better, and I think the paint output alone is just a good quality of life, because for a weapon that is as flimsy and like has as poor kits as it does, the fact that it painted so little and also being so ink hungry did not feel justified. Like, you know, actual like top tier weapons like the Cavitator felt inefficient by comparison, while having like better kits and better main weapons. So like, I don't know why Recycled was so undertuned. It's kind of crazy. And speaking of top tiers that are getting hit, we once again nerfed the Sniper Paint, which is fine. It's been meta defining for like forever, just making it a little worse at stalling and contesting zones and stuff like that for free. It'll take longer to build coolers, and will paint over people as well. Just kind of, I wouldn't say I expected this, given they already nerfed the paint once, and sometimes it takes a bit to do that, but I'm also not super surprised, given I saw how much they nerfed Splat Charger paint in Splatoon 2, when that was like really strong for a period. Like, they gutted the paint on that, so seeing another Sniper paint nerf is not surprising to me. Paint nerfs, also relevant because we're talking about the Cavitator, you know, putting my hand on my chest here as if you can see that. That was the weapon that I used to get top 10 NA. So, you know, it's a weapon I know very well. Mint is very, very, very strong with a very, very good kit and good damage values and good ink efficiency and good paint and all this. Honestly, pre-patch Decapitator, I would argue, had the best paint in the entire game in the context of self-sufficient paint that is clean. I'm talking like no gaps and just very little like commitment to just painting. Like the Decapitator could just shoot like 4 times and it was just like a clean like rectangle of paint to deal with. You know, even like weapons I would say paint well, you know, like Aerospray, Splash-O-Matic, all that stuff like that. They're still shooters, so sometimes the paint kind of looks sloppy unless you're doing the thing where you kind of wiggle your camera up and down. So the Decapitator kind of going like 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's just a huge section of the map painted. Yeah, kind of ridiculous, so reducing that by 12% is completely fair. The other nerf they gave it is that when you do a charge flash and you start, you know, dashing forward, it's 2 more frames of startup. Honestly, these nerfs are really fair. Expected a paint nerf that felt like a given. I'm kind of glad they went with the direction of just making the dash slash more reactable. I'm glad we didn't nerf the hitbox, because I feel like that's the thing everyone complains about. But at the same time, if you theoretically nerfed the Cavitator's hitbox and therefore like nerfed its like reach, let's say you shrunk the hitbox hypothetically, even if you dash to people, like you might have been outranged by stuff like splatter shot that you're kind of like clipping now, right? So I think it's a healthier change to make it more reactable, but letting the iconic, like, hey, what makes this weapon unique, be the big hitbox is good. But also making the paint, you know, not like literally like top 2 or 3 in the game is appropriate to say. It sucks for Charcoal specifically because I didn't have a high opinion of it relative to Mint, but honestly, this patch is basically me trading the paint of the Cavitator onto Recycled instead. It's like those dumb memes of like your what is it? I'll throw it up in editing. You know what I'm talking about. I find those funny, so it's basically this patch is that with Recycled and Decapitator. So that's the main weapon changes, and there are 3 special changes. One of these kind of surprises me. First one is Ultra Stamp. This one, actually no, that's a lie. 2 of them surprised me. The first one was Ultra Stamp, because it says increase the damage dealt with the explosion at the point of impact when the stamp is thrown. They basically buffed the hammer throw, but not in the way I thought. I thought they would buff hammer throw, you know, in terms of like less end lag or less startup or just, I don't know, the more paint, I don't know, just, I thought they would do something like that. What they did is they took the 60 damage hitbox and it OHKOs, and it not only OHKOs, it doesn't just do 100 to kill you. It does 220, which is ludicrous object damage. Like, jumping 160 points of damage is crazy for your object shredding. And like, you could put it with the game right now and just throw the hammer like between 2 dummies in the training room, it'll do 60 to both. That will one-shot 2 people. And it's not even making contact with the actual hammer itself. Like, they're not getting like, it's not the thing where the hammer's like swinging through their body. It's to the side. Like, this is a big hitbox now. Like, it is huge. Even the weakest hitbox that was 30 in the previous patch is now 60. Like, this is crazy. Like, 220 is a big damage value in this game because, like, keep in mind, this is killing through spawn armor. Like, you know the way the Zuka could just, like, you would get picks and someone come out of spawn and you're just holding onto Zuka and you go pop and they die. It's like that. Like, sure, hammer throw is more reactive. This is a giant hitbox. It is crazy that this is going to happen. Like, this is going to take time to get used to. Like, this is crazy. I'm not saying the meta is going to be like throw hammers, because it's not, but just in terms of the general respect you have to have for Ultra Stamp now, like, you know, when it came to it, like pre-patch, it's like, oh, unless I'm like being really stupid and like going into the hammer throw directly, I'm not scared. Now it's like, if this guy's looking in my direction or like I'm a slow clunky weapon, you're gonna die. This is scary. This is a very scary buff. Which I think is like relevant mainly from, you know, Wiper's like #1 in my mind, a weapon that's kind of fallen off and hasn't been really good for a while. Like Wiper also got the vertical frame data buff a couple patches ago, so like that and this is like pretty cool together. I can't say like, I don't think it'll make Wiper meta necessarily, but it'll make like Hammer specifically much scarier. And this also just makes it like really strong to throw at things, I guess, because like, you know, over a year ago or whatever, they buffed the hammer throw to do a lot more damage to Crab, let's say, but you know, it would still be a thing. You need to kind of hit the Crab body with the hammer because you want that 220 hitbox, but now it's like, the Crab could be strafing and you're basically gonna insta break the Crab because that's 60 hitbox that you were probably hitting when the Crabs are reacting to you and like moving. Now that's 220, like, with the multiplier, like, that's really stupid. Also, it makes hammer throw a lot more effective on other objects, you know, like throwing it on top of the big bubble, for example. That's gonna hurt. That does a crazy amount of damage. It's gonna be really frustrating for weapons like Dynamo, Hydra, just Tenebral, I think hates this. Granted, any hitbox Oko Tenebral before just hammer relevance equals bad for Tent. Speaking of bad for Tent, I actually gotta skip the Splash now one for a second, talk about Zuka because it's more interesting. Zuka got a nerf. That's kind of surprising to me. It's obviously one of the best specials in the game, that is without question, but I think the general output and, you know, what I was seeing had lowered a lot. It wasn't nearly as bad as it was when I was seeing like Charge Up Shot maybe like a year and a half ago. So what they did is they made the damage, or I guess they added a new hitbox basically, where the Oko still Okos you. The middle link hitbox is still 53, which is what it was post nerf. But they also added a 35 hitbox, like the outside of that, and they also shortened the duration by half a second when not using special power. So basically the duration of Zuka is shorter, so you can't hold that third shot as long, which is like the scariest part of Zuka IMO outside of the first shot. Yeah, this lowers the consistency of Zuka a lot, and Zuka was already kind of, in my mind, a not too amazing consistent special. Like when it hit and was broken, it felt really broken, but you know, with the increase of like bubbles with decavs and stuff like that, and just like the nerf in general, you know, I wasn't really expecting this nerf, although if you look in like solo usage statistics, I still think Zuka's like uber broken in Rainmaker, so this is, you know, fair. I'm not saying it's not fair, because it is fair, but what I am saying is this sucks for Tent. Like, this blows for Tent. Like, the best Brella in this game is the Zuka one, so hitting it with this nerf when it already has, like, I believe 210? Is it 200 or 210 Zuka? I don't remember. I fast started that thing and haven't played it in, like, a long time. That's really bad for Tent, let's say, because, you know, this is, like, how Tent deals with, like, long range, and also it just makes it worse at comboing off of itself. Like, if you hit someone and then you end up hitting the 35, granted, if your aim is better, you could hit it, you know, but... You know, Ink Mine will combo as well, like, you know, nerfing it from 63, I think it was, to 53 already kind of ruined some of the Ink Mine combos, but now you're going down to 35 if you're not aiming well. Like, don't get me wrong, this is a good nerf. It is a, like, skill-intensive based nerf, where the good Zuka players are, like, fine, but the people who are just mindlessly, like, Unga Bunga AoE, like, I want to kill that guy on the side of my hitbox when I'm mindlessly shooting it twice, like, it's bad for them. If you want to do that, that's what Stamp is for now, because Stamp's hitbox just Okos in, like, a 6-foot radius for some forsaken reason. I don't. I feel like the player base is gonna hate that for a while. But yeah, honestly, fair. And I'll be real. I got top 10 in Rainmaker last season. I spam Splatter Shot for like a good 200 points because Zuka is broken in Rainmaker. So yeah, you know, I'm part of the problem here. My bad. And the last change is simple: triple splash to increase the radius ink bag explosion by 11%. The special's not good at painting, so making it paint a bit more is pretty cool. Doing a thumbs up, that's kind of the extent of how I feel about that. It's a cool change. I think that is pretty neat. We'll go down here and I'll just mention it now because Empre was a 190 splash and they made it 200 and now it's 190 again. That with the dually buff makes Empre kind of a low-level lobby demon kind of weapon. Same with Sploosh. I think Sploosh also gets like really dumb this patch in lower levels specifically because like lower level lobbies don't deal with hammer. So having giant Oko throw hitbox on like Sploosh's big wide hitbox on a weapon that's ink efficient with like all this frame data, like Sploosh is like Sploosh and Empre are like built to destroy like lower level lobbies. It's really funny. Octobrush got 10 cheapers. Lost on Zipcaster, that's like cool. To be honest, I didn't even remember that it was 200, so I mean, it's there. Initially I was like kind of excited for this, and then I remembered FF is like the whale dowser, and in my opinion that's like a bottom 5 weapon in the game, so this is like I don't really care kind of territory. This one's cool though. This one's cool. Bottom 5 weapons. Hey, my bottom 5 weapon's cooler than yours. Fight me. The splash not recycled is now 190, and on top of the paint buff and ink efficiency, you might build 5 or 6 a game now. Still a bad weapon, but it's got more going for it. That's pretty cool. And S-Boss got nerfed to 200, fair enough. It got main weapon buffs, Booyah buff got buffed. It's not amazing at painting, but if we live in a world where we have 210 Waybreaker it is on range boss, where it paints really badly, like this is fair enough. That and Sniper Rider on top of its paint nerf got 220 cooler. Fair enough. Bluefin moved the lamp on the bridge to the top of the... I don't know what lamp they're talking about. I'm not even gonna pretend, I don't play that map. And they have some Splatfest specific changes. Basically, this is meant to address the win rates. I have it up here. If you want to look at more specifics on that, just check out Oatmeal Dome's Twitter. Basically, has like attacker versus defender win rate statistics, and they're basically modifying the maps to address the fact that some of these are kind of skewed, like how Bluefin's got this low of an attacker win rate. Yeah. So I think this would be more relevant. You know, A, to Fest enjoyment, and B, when they eventually add Tricolor to PB, because it's kind of inevitable, we just don't really know when. I'm not going to go into these. I'm going to talk about this and read this. Upon analyzing the battle data since releasing the last update and considering weapons relationships to the weapons for which we improved performance last time, we slightly extended the range of shots for some weapons with shorter range than those we improved last time, made changes to strengthen the traits overcompensate for the weaknesses of some weapon with flight distances similar to those that we previously improved. Basically, last patch they buffed stuff like Splatter Shot Pro and Splatter Shot Zap, so they're saying like, okay, you know, we're buffing those so the short range weapons get something. That and the Sniper Rider and Decav, they mentioned that they want to reduce the ability to, you know, keep like map control and have like a bajillion paint, and also kind of like stuff out the short range weapons. That just make it less egregious, basically. And for Zuka, they want to make it, you know, it's a special that can kind of just like turn the game on its head. They're aware of that, but they also want to make it easier to fight by making it so that there's less time that you have to kind of be wary of the Trizuka once it gets popped in, then, you know, trying to tone down the amount of times people explode to the AoE despite like hiding behind geometry. Basically meant to address that, make it less consistent. It'll be like, okay, you might explode if you're hiding behind a wall, like the first shot hits like the 53 and then the second one hits 53 behind the wall, you know. That happens, a lot of people got annoyed at it, but like, you know, fair enough. If the Zuka's like relatively well aimed, that's kind of expected, you know, if you play this game enough. Now it's like, okay, there's a sour spot on that does 35, so if you get hit by the AoE and then like quickly get out of the way and the opponent doesn't like read or aim like super duper well, then yeah, you're gonna live. You'll be super weak, but you'll live. And that's basically what they want with that. Overall, it's kind of what I expected of the patch. I think it's pretty decent. I don't see any changes I super don't like, though honestly, as hysterical as this buff is, I don't know if this is a healthy change per se. We'll see how this one plays out. Expectation for weapons, I still think Mint is really, really good. I just think it'll, you know, not build as many bubbles, and it might get away with a bit less killing. Sniper Rider is a little less dominant, and because of this, I expect Heavy Edit, the cooler one, to see a lot more usage. As you know, pre-patch it's like Heavy Edit and Pen are like kind of just on the same tier, like above every other cooler weapon in my head, where it's like, these are the best ones, you should build comps around these. I think people will explore a bit more with Heavy Edit now than we did previously. In terms of, you know, like meta-defining weapons, I think we might see a little bit of NZAP for a bit with this. I think it'll be like a week where people play Mini, but then they'll kind of just be like, nah, still not the gun. Heavy's cool, but man, those kits are really not great. Blue Dapple I still believe in personally, and I think this one's honestly one of the bigger ones, even though it doesn't sound, you know, amazing, just because I really think the Crapula is a very good weapon. So that's cool. Basically edit up, Sniper Rider down a little, Decav down a little, Stamp very annoying, Zuka down a little, bit more skill intensive. Splashdown basically the same, but a little more annoying, I guess. I guess technically S+ down, just like teeny tiny bit, like smidge, doesn't really matter. Yeah, subscribe if you want to see me play Recycled, because I'm probably going to start doing a thing to A, get myself to upload more frequently, and B, kind of have more gameplay on the channel because my uploads are very infrequent and I need to do more like simple videos. So A, subscribe if you haven't already, and B, if I haven't convinced you to subscribe already, even though it's been like 20 minutes of the video and you're still listening to me, get excited because we're going to be introducing Low Tier Tuesday, in which I probably play awful weapons like Recycled and see how we do. Probably an X, because people like seeing me suffer. Yeah, anyway, that's the patch video. I hope you enjoy. I hope you enjoy the patch. I hope you got something you were looking forward to playing. For me, personally, this piece of garbage. Get excited. Yeah, okay. Keen, have a good day.